They stripped her badge in the middle of the ER like she was some kind of criminal. Not in an office, not behind closed doors. Right there, under fluorescent lights, in front of patients, families, nurses who'd worked beside her for years. Emily Carter didn't flinch, didn't beg, just stood there with her hands loose at her sides, breathing slow, while the director of operations held her ID between two fingers like it was contaminated. What they didn't see, what no one saw, was the maintenance worker in the corner. He wasn't mopping, wasn't fixing anything. He was watching. And when Emily turned to leave, he stepped into the supply closet, pulled a phone from inside his jacket, and made a call that didn't sound like anything a janitor should be making. His voice was low, clipped. Military. Target confirmed. Begin acquisition. By morning, the entire hospital would be under new ownership. But Emily Carter, she had no idea. Now, before we go any further, I need you to do something. Stay with me until the end of this story. Watch what happens when the system tries to break someone who's already survived worse. And drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Emily Carter had been a nurse at Northgate Regional Hospital in Denver for 9 years. Not the kind who smiled through everything or pretended the job was a calling. She showed up, did the work, kept people alive. That was it. She didn't do hospital politics, didn't join committees or fight for recognition. She clocked in, ran codes, stitched wounds, held hands when people were dying, and went home. Most people thought she was cold, professional to the point of distant, but the truth was simpler. She just didn't waste energy on things that didn't matter. And in a place like Northgate, where half the administration cared more about billing codes than heartbeats, that made her dangerous. It was a Thursday night when everything broke. The ER was slammed. Chest pains in Bay 3. Seizure in 5. A drunk driver in 8 who wouldn't stop screaming about his rights. Emily was on her second double in 3 days, running on cold coffee and muscle memory, when the automatic doors slid open and a man stumbled in carrying a boy who wasn't moving. "Help, please, he won't wake up." The man's voice cracked. His hands were shaking so hard the kid's head lolled against his shoulder. The boy was maybe 7, pale, lips tinged blue, breathing shallow and wrong. Emily moved before anyone else did. "Trauma 2, now." She took the boy from his father's arms, light, too light, and laid him on the gurney. One of the younger nurses, Jenna, was already pulling monitors. Emily's hands moved fast. Airway, breathing, circulation, pupils sluggish, pulse thready, skin cold. "What happened?" Emily asked, not looking up. "I don't know. He was fine this morning. Then he said his stomach hurt and he just collapsed." "Any medications, allergies?" "No, nothing. Please." Emily's jaw tightened. She'd seen this before. Appendicitis, maybe. Or worse, sepsis already setting in. Either way, the kid didn't have long. "Jenna, get me a line. 2 if you can. Pull a CBC, CMP, lactate, page surgery." "Emily, do it." Jenna hesitated. Just for a second. Then she moved. That's when the charge nurse appeared in the doorway. Linda Graves, 40-something. The kind of nurse who'd spent more time behind a desk than a bedside in the last decade. She had that look, tight mouth, arms crossed, tablet clutched like a weapon. "Carter, stop." Emily didn't stop. She was already prepping the IV, hands steady even as her pulse kicked up. She knew that tone, knew what was coming. "Carter, I said stop." "Not now, Linda." "Check the system." Emily finally looked up. Linda was holding the tablet out, screen facing her. On it, a red flag next to the boy's name, or lack of one. No insurance, no guarantor on file, just a name scribbled by intake and a giant flashing transfer recommended in the notes. "He's unstable," Emily said flatly. "He won't make a transfer." "That's not your call." "It is if he dies in the back of an ambulance." Linda's face went tight. Her voice dropped lower, like she was trying to keep this between them even though half the ER could hear. "We have protocols for a reason. Protocols don't keep kids alive. You don't have the authority to override. Then get someone who does." Linda's mouth opened, closed. Her knuckles went white around the tablet. Then she turned and walked out, heels clicking hard against the tile like gunshots. Emily went back to work, got the line in, pushed fluids. The boy's pressure ticked up, barely. His father stood in the corner, hands pressed to his mouth, eyes wet and lost. Is he going to be okay? Emily didn't lie to parents. Never had. I don't know yet, but I'm not letting him go anywhere until he's stable. The father nodded. He looked like he wanted to say something else, but the words wouldn't come. So he just stood there, useless and terrified and drowning in a system that didn't care if his son lived or died as long as the paperwork was clean. Jenna came back with the labs. Emily scanned them fast. White count through the roof, lactate elevated. She swore under her breath. Page Dr. Patel again. Tell him it's urgent. Emily, if Linda finds out, she already knows. Just do it. Jenna left. Emily kept working, rechecked vitals, adjusted the fluids, watched the monitor like her life depended on it. The boy's oxygen was holding, barely, but holding. Across the room, near the supply closet, the maintenance worker was still there. Older guy, graying hair, weathered face. He'd been around for months, maybe a year. No one really noticed him. He blended in the way people who work in the background always do. Invisible until something breaks. But he wasn't mopping, wasn't fixing anything, just standing there with his hands in his pockets, watching the chaos unfold like he was taking notes. Emily caught his eye for half a second. Something about the way he stood, shoulders loose, weight balanced, eyes sharp, made her pause. She'd seen that stance before. Not in hospitals, in places where standing wrong could get you killed. Then Jenna was back, and Emily's attention snapped away. Patel's coming down. Good. Dr. Patel arrived 6 minutes later, moving fast, white coat flapping behind him. He was one of the few surgeons left who still acted like saving lives mattered more than billing hours. Indian, early 50s, sharp as hell. Talk to me. Emily rattled off the vitals, the labs, the timeline. Patel pulled up the portable ultrasound, pressed it to the boy's abdomen, and his face went hard. Perforated appendix. Probable peritonitis. Free fluid in the abdomen. He looked at Emily. How long has he been like this? Father said he collapsed about 2 hours ago, but the pain probably started earlier. He's septic. I know. Patel straightened, already making decisions. He needs an OR. Now. I'll take him up. Linda flagged him for transfer. Patel's eyes narrowed. She what? No insurance. Jesus Christ. He looked at the boy, then at Emily. You stabilized him? Enough to buy time. Good. Prep him for transport. I'll clear the OR. Linda's not going to let this go. Patel's jaw tightened. Let me worry about Linda. But Emily knew better. Patel could push back in the moment, but administration always won in the end. They had the power, the policies, the lawyers. Doctors could complain, nurses could fight. But the system didn't bend. It just ground you down until you stopped trying. Still, she prepped the boy. Got him ready. The father rode up with them, silent and pale, holding his son's hand like it was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. The OR team took over. Emily stepped back, watched them wheel the boy through the double doors. Then she turned and walked back to the ER, her scrubs still damp with sweat, her hands aching from how hard she'd been gripping things. It was 4:47 a.m. Her shift ended at 7. She didn't think she'd make it that long. At 6:12 a.m., Emily was in the break room pouring burnt coffee into a styrofoam cup when the door opened. She didn't turn around, didn't need to. She could feel the weight of whoever it was before they even spoke. Miss Carter, Richard Moss, Director of Operations, mid-50s. Expensive suit that probably cost more than Emily made in a month. Thinning hair, soft hands, the kind of guy who talked about fiscal responsibility and sustainable care models while people bled out in hallways because there weren't enough staff. Emily didn't turn around. Moss, we need to talk. I'm off in 48 minutes. This won't take long. She turned. He wasn't alone. Linda was behind him, arms crossed, mouth tight, and there was someone from HR. A woman Emily had seen once, maybe twice. Blonde, 30-something, holding a folder like it contained a death sentence. Emily set the cup down. What's this about? You violated hospital policy last night. I saved a kid's life. You overrode a transfer protocol without authorization. Because he would have died. That's not the point. Emily's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Then what is? Moss stepped closer. His cologne was too strong, the kind that made you think he was trying to cover something up. You don't get to make those calls. You're a nurse, not a doctor, not an administrator. You follow orders. That's your job. My job is to keep people alive. Your job, Moss said slowly, like he was talking to a child, is whatever we tell you it is. The HR woman opened the folder, pulled out a single piece of paper. Emily recognized the letterhead, termination notice. Effective immediately, your employment at Northgate Regional is terminated. You'll surrender your badge, access card, and any hospital property before you leave the building. Emily didn't move, didn't speak. Just looked at Moss like she was deciding whether he was worth the breath. You've got to be kidding. I'm not. I've been here 9 years. And in 9 years, you've racked up 14 complaints for insubordination. From people like you. Moss's smile was thin, cold. Doesn't matter. You're done. Linda stepped forward, holding out her hand. Badge. Emily looked at her, really looked. Linda wouldn't meet her eyes, just stared at the floor like she was ashamed, but not enough to do anything about it. Slowly, Emily unclipped her ID from her scrub pocket, held it for a moment, felt the weight of 9 years in a piece of plastic. Then she dropped it into Linda's palm. Anything else? You have 30 minutes to clear out your locker, the HR woman said, voice flat and rehearsed. Security will escort you. I don't need an escort. It's policy. Emily almost laughed. Almost. Instead, she just walked past all three of them and out into the hall. The ER was quieter now. Morning shift starting to trickle in. A few nurses glanced her way. One, Marcus, who'd worked codes with her 100 times, started to say something. Emily shook her head. He stopped, looked away. They all did. She walked to the staff locker room. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Someone had left a half-eaten sandwich on the bench. The room smelled like industrial cleaner and old coffee. Emily pulled out the duffel she kept in her locker, tossed in a pair of sneakers, a spare hoodie, a water bottle, a picture of her and her sister from 10 years ago, back when things were simpler. That was it. 9 years, and it all fit in one bag. When she walked back out, security was waiting. 2 guys she didn't recognize. Young, awkward, probably told to treat her like a threat. Ma'am, we'll need to walk you out. Fine. They flanked her like she might bolt, like she might steal something on the way to the door. People stared, patients, families, staff. Emily kept her eyes forward, didn't react, didn't explain, just walked. But as she passed the main desk, she saw him again. The maintenance guy. The one who was always around but never really there. He was standing by the supply closet holding a mop he wasn't using. And he was watching her. Not the way people gawk. The way soldiers track movement. Calm, assessing, aware. Emily's instincts prickled. She'd seen that look before. A long time ago. In places that didn't have fluorescent lights and linoleum floors. Places where you learned to read people fast or you didn't come home. But she didn't stop. Didn't ask. Just kept walking. The automatic doors slid open. Cold air hit her face. She stepped outside. Outside, the morning air was brutal. Denver in October. The kind of cold that cut through scrubs like they weren't even there. The sky was gray, heavy with clouds that looked like they might dump snow by evening. Emily tossed her duffel in the passenger seat of her beat-up Civic and sat behind the wheel. She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't punch the dashboard or call someone to vent, just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, staring at the hospital she'd given 9 years to. The place where she'd saved lives, lost patients, worked doubles until her feet bled, and apparently none of it mattered. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. That's bullshit. You know that, right? She didn't reply. Another buzz. Jenna this time. The kid made it through surgery. He's stable. Emily closed her eyes. Let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Good. She started the car. The engine coughed once, then caught. She pulled out of the lot, turned onto the street, and drove away without looking back. What Emily didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that 30 seconds after she left, the maintenance worker stepped into the supply closet, pulled a phone from the inside pocket of his jacket, It wasn't the kind of phone you bought at a store, no brand, no logo, encrypted, secure, military grade. He dialed a number. It rang once. A voice answered, clipped, professional, female. Status? The man's voice was quiet, but there was weight in it. Command. The kind of voice that didn't ask twice. Target confirmed. Emily Carter, former lieutenant, 45th Combat Support Hospital. 9 years clean. Just terminated for saving a minor against hospital policy. Reason for termination? Insubordination. Unauthorized medical intervention. No insurance coverage for the patient. A pause on the other end. Then, recommendation? The man glanced through the small window in the door. Watched the hallway where Emily had walked out. Thought about the way she'd moved under pressure. Calm. Precise. No hesitation. Like someone who'd done it before. In worse places. Under fire. Full acquisition. Immediate. Approved. Begin phase 1. The call ended. The man slipped the phone back into his jacket, picked up the mop, walked back out into the hall like nothing had happened. Like he was just another invisible worker keeping the place running. But things were already in motion. By noon, 3 private jets would be airborne. By evening, legal teams would be in Denver. By midnight, Northgate Regional Hospital would no longer belong to the people who'd just fired Emily Carter. But she wouldn't know that yet. Emily drove home on autopilot. Her apartment was a 1-bedroom in a building that had seen better days. Cracked paint, thin walls, a radiator that clanked like it was trying to start a fight. But it was hers, quiet, no one asking her for anything. She dropped her keys on the counter, tossed the duffel on the couch, stood there in the middle of the room, still wearing her scrubs, and tried to figure out what the hell she was supposed to do next. 9 years, gone. Just like that. Her phone buzzed again. She ignored it, walked to the bathroom, turned on the shower, stood under the water until it ran cold. When she got out, she checked her phone. 4 missed calls, 2 voicemails, a dozen texts, most of them from coworkers. Some supportive, some just curious. A few from people she barely knew, probably looking for gossip. She deleted all of them. Then she pulled on sweatpants and a hoodie, made herself a sandwich she didn't want, and sat on the couch, staring at the wall. Outside, the sky finally opened up. Snow started to fall, thick and heavy. The kind that stuck. Emily ate half the sandwich, fell asleep sitting up. The hospital ran like it always did. Patients came in, staff rotated. Moss went back to his office, pleased with himself, and sent an email to the board summarizing the personnel issue he'd resolved. Linda filed the termination paperwork and went to lunch at a place she couldn't really afford, but went to anyway because it made her feel important. No one noticed the maintenance worker was gone. No one noticed the new IT contractor who showed up that afternoon, clearance already in the system, and started poking around the hospital's financial records with access that shouldn't have been possible. No one noticed the quiet man in a tailored suit who walked into the main conference room at 4 p.m. and sat down with the CFO for a meeting that wasn't on anyone's calendar. The CFO, a man named Gerald Porter, didn't ask questions at first. People in suits showed up all the time. Auditors, consultants, lawyers. But this one was different. He didn't make small talk, didn't smile, just opened a briefcase and slid a document across the table. "What is this?" Gerald asked. "An offer." "For what?" "The hospital." Gerald laughed, then stopped when he saw the number. "This is a joke." "It's not. No one's selling Northgate." "They will be, by tonight." Gerald's face went pale. "Who the hell are you?" The man stood, buttoned his jacket. "Someone who doesn't appreciate waste." He left. Gerald sat there for 10 minutes, staring at the document, before he called the board president. By 6 p.m., the board was in an emergency session. By 8 p.m., Richard Moss got a phone call that made his face go white. By 10 p.m., the hospital's board of directors had voted to accept an acquisition offer they didn't fully understand and couldn't refuse. By midnight, the entire hospital had changed hands. What? Emily Carter was asleep when it happened, dreamless, exhausted, unaware that the world she'd just been kicked out of was being quietly, methodically dismantled and rebuilt. She woke up at 6 a.m. to her phone ringing. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Her head hurt. Her body ached. She didn't want to talk to anyone, but something made her pick up. Hello? Miss Carter, my name is David Brennan. I represent the new ownership of Northgate Regional Hospital. Emily sat up. Her brain was still foggy. What? We'd like to meet with you, today, if possible. Who is this? There's a car outside your building. It'll take you to a private location. We have a proposal. Emily's pulse kicked. What kind of proposal? The kind that corrects mistakes. I don't understand. You will. The car is waiting. The line went dead. Emily pulled back the curtain, looked down at the street. A black SUV was parked at the curb. Engine running, tinted windows. No plates she could see from this angle. Her heart kicked once. Hard. She stood there for a long moment. Every instinct she'd learned in the army was screaming at her. Don't get in unmarked vehicles. Don't trust strangers. Don't walk into situations you don't control. But another part of her, the part that had walked into worse without blinking, was curious. She grabbed her jacket, pulled on boots, went downstairs. The driver didn't speak, just opened the rear door. Emily hesitated, then got in. The door closed. The SUV pulled away from the curb and disappeared into Denver traffic. Inside, the seats were leather, warm. There was a bottle of water in the cup holder. Classical music playing softly. It felt expensive, controlled, like someone had thought through every detail. Emily didn't touch the water. 20 minutes later, they pulled into an underground garage. Private building. High-end. The kind of place where people made deals that never showed up on paper. The driver opened her door. Third floor, suite 302. Emily got out, took the elevator. The hallway was silent, carpeted, smelled like leather and money. She found suite 302, knocked. The door opened. The maintenance worker stood there. No uniform now, just dark slacks and a button-down. He looked different, older, yeah, but sharper, like he'd stopped pretending. Ms. Carter, come in. Emily didn't move. Who are you? Someone who's been watching. That's not an answer. No, but it's the truth. He stepped back, gestured inside. Emily walked in. The suite was simple. A table, a few chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and sitting at the table was a woman in her 40s, Asian, sharp suit, eyes like a lawyer who'd never lost. Miss Carter, please, sit. Emily stayed standing. I want to know what this is. The woman smiled. It's a correction. Of what? An injustice. She gestured to the chair again. Please. Emily sat. Not because she trusted them, but because she wanted answers. The woman slid a folder across the table. Emily opened it. Inside was a contract, her name at the top. A title that made her blink. Chief of Emergency Medicine, Northgate Regional Hospital. Emily looked up. This is a joke. It's not. I was fired yesterday. By people who no longer work there. Emily's breath caught. What? The maintenance worker, whoever he really was, pulled out a chair and sat across from her. Richard Moss was terminated at 11:47 p.m. last night. Linda Graves was reassigned to a position with no patient contact. The CFO resigned. The board has been restructured. How? Because the hospital doesn't belong to them anymore. Who does it belong to? He smiled, thin, controlled. People who believe competence matters more than paperwork. Emily stared at him, then at the woman, then back at the contract. This doesn't make sense. It does if you stop thinking like someone who's been beaten down by bureaucrats. Emily's jaw tightened. I don't know you. No, but I know you. He leaned forward. Lieutenant Emily Carter, 45th Combat Support Hospital, 2 deployments, 13 commendations, discharged honorably. Came home and became a nurse because you couldn't stop trying to save people. Her blood went cold. How do you know that? Because I was there. Where? Kandahar, 2014. You ran a trauma bay in a field hospital under mortar fire for 16 hours straight. I was embedded with your unit, Special Operations. We brought you casualties you shouldn't have been able to save. You saved them anyway. Emily's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat on the table. That was 12 years ago, and you haven't changed. You're still the same person who wouldn't let people die just because someone with a clipboard said it wasn't worth the cost. The woman spoke again. We need people like you, Ms. Carter. People who understand that saving lives isn't a line item. It's the mission. Emily looked at the contract again. The salary was triple what she'd been making. The authority was absolute. No one could override her medical decisions in an emergency. Why me? Because yesterday you proved you're still a soldier. You just fight in a different uniform now. Emily sat back. Her mind was spinning. This was insane. What's the catch? The woman smiled. There isn't one. You run the ER. You make the calls. You hire the staff. You build the department the way it should be built. And no one stops you. And if I say no, then we find someone else. But it won't be as good. Emily looked out the window. The city stretched out below, cold, gray, unforgiving. Then she looked back at the man who used to push a mop. What's your real name? Marcus Hale, Colonel, retired, and currently the primary investor in Northgate Regional. Emily almost laughed. You bought a hospital. I bought the opportunity to fix a broken system. You're the one who will actually do it. She looked at the contract one more time, thought about the boy, about Jenna, about Marcus and all the staff who stayed because they didn't have a choice. She picked up the pen, signed. When do I start? Tomorrow, 7 a.m. Your office is ready. Emily stood, shook the woman's hand, then Hale's. One question. Go ahead. What happens to Moss? Hale's smile didn't reach his eyes. He's being interviewed by federal auditors as we speak. Turns out there are some irregularities in how he handled hospital funds. Medicare fraud, kickbacks, the kind of thing that puts people in prison. Emily nodded, didn't smile, just walked to the door. Hale called after her. Carter, she turned. Welcome back to the fight. She left. The SUV dropped her back at her apartment. Emily walked inside, closed the door, and stood there in the silence. Then she pulled out her phone, texted Jenna. I'm coming back. Tomorrow. Things are going to change. Jenna's reply came fast. How? Emily didn't answer, just smiled. Outside, snow was still falling, but the sky was starting to clear. Somewhere across town, Richard Moss was sitting in an interrogation room, realizing his career was over. And at Northgate Regional Hospital, the night shift had no idea that by morning, everything they knew was about to be rewritten. Emily Carter walked into Northgate Regional Hospital at 6:47 a.m. the next morning wearing the same scrubs she'd been fired in. She didn't have new ones yet, didn't have a new badge, just the contract folded in her jacket pocket and a keycard that had been slipped under her door at 5:30 a.m. with a note that said, 3rd floor, West Wing. Your name's on the door. The ER entrance was the same. Automatic doors, fluorescent lights, the faint smell of disinfectant and fear. A few early morning stragglers in the waiting room, someone holding their wrist, another coughing into a mask. The triage nurse looked up, saw Emily, and her face went slack. You're back? Emily didn't slow down. Yeah. But I thought things changed. She kept walking, through the double doors, past the nurse's station where Marcus was logging into a computer. He looked up, did a double take. Carter? Morning. What the hell are you doing here? Working? You got fired. I got rehired. Marcus stood up. By who? Emily stopped, turned, looked him in the eye. New ownership. I'll explain later. Right now I need you to pull the schedule for the next 2 weeks and meet me upstairs in 20 minutes. Upstairs where? 3rd floor, West Wing. That's administration. Not anymore. She left him standing there, mouth half open, and headed for the elevator. Hit the button, waited. The doors opened and she stepped inside, alone. The ride-up was silent except for the hum of the cables and the faint ding at each floor. When the doors opened on 3, the hallway was different, carpet instead of tile, quiet instead of chaos. Offices with nameplates and frosted glass. She walked to the end of the hall, found the door. Her name was already on it. Dr. Emily Carter, Chief of Emergency Medicine. She wasn't a doctor, never had been, but apparently someone had decided the title fit the role. She didn't correct it, just swiped the key card and walked in. The office was bigger than her apartment. Desk, chairs, A window overlooking the city. A computer already logged in under her name. On the desk was a folder. She opened it. Inside was a full organizational chart of the ER, every staff member listed with notes, performance reviews, incident reports, complaints, commendations. Someone had done their homework. She sat down, pulled the chair up, started reading. 20 minutes later, Marcus knocked. "Come in." He stepped inside, looked around, and let out a low whistle. "Jesus, they gave you Moss's office." This wasn't Moss's office. No, his was bigger. This was the VP of operations. She quit last night. Emily looked up. She quit or she was pushed? Does it matter? No. Marcus sat down across from her. "You want to tell me what's going on?" "The hospital was sold. New ownership. They want the ER rebuilt. I'm running it." "Just like that?" "Just like that." Marcus leaned back. "Who bought it?" "Private investor. Someone with money and a low tolerance for incompetence." "And they picked you." "They picked someone who won't roll over when administration says a kid isn't worth saving." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "Okay. What do you need?" "I need to know who's solid and who's dead weight. I need to know who'll fight and who'll fold the second someone in a suit shows up with a policy manual." "You're talking about firing people." "I'm talking about building a team that works." Marcus pulled out his phone. Started scrolling. "All right, Linda's gone, right? Reassigned. She's working inventory in the basement." "Good. She was useless." He kept scrolling. "Jenna's solid. Works her ass off. Doesn't complain. Sarah in triage is good, but she's got a temper. Blew up at a patient's family last month." "What happened?" "They were drunk. Got in her face. She told them to sit down or get out." "Sounds reasonable." "Administration wrote her up." "Not anymore." Emily made a note. "Who else?" They went through the list. 15 nurses, 8 techs, 4 unit clerks. By the end, Emily had a clear picture. Half the staff was competent, a quarter was excellent, the rest were coasting. "What about physicians?" Emily asked. "You mean the attendings?" "Yeah," Marcus grimaced. "Dr. Patel's the only one who gives a damn. The rest treat the ER like a stepping stone. Show up, see patients, leave." "They getting paid for that?" "Contractor rates. They're not hospital employees." Emily made another note. "That's going to change." "How?" "I'll figure it out." Marcus stood. "You know people are going to push back, right? You can't just walk in here and start swinging." Emily looked at him. "Watch me." He left. Emily sat there for a minute, staring at the org chart. Then she picked up the desk phone and dialed an internal extension. "Security, this is Dawson. This is Emily Carter, Chief of Emergency Medicine. I need you to change all the access codes for the ER. Immediately." Ma'am, I'd need authorization from—" "You have it. I'm authorizing it. Any administrator who wants in will need to go through me first." There was a pause. "Are you serious?" "Completely." "Okay, it'll take about an hour." "Make it 30 minutes." She hung up. Then she opened her email, scrolled through the inbox. Most of it was automated. Policy updates, scheduling notifications. But buried in the middle was a message from someone named Victoria Lynn. Subject line, "Welcome aboard." Emily opened it. "Ms. Carter, welcome to your new role. Attached, you'll find the current ER budget, staffing contracts, and equipment inventory. Review and let me know what you need. We'll make it happen. Also, there's a board meeting at 10 a.m. today. You're expected to attend. Consider it your introduction. Victoria Lynn, CFO." Emily checked the time. 7:42 a.m. She had 2 hours. She downloaded the attachments, started reading. The budget was a disaster. Underfunded, overstretched, equipment requests from 6 months ago still pending, staffing levels below national standards. No wonder the ER was a war zone. But at the bottom of the budget sheet was a note in red. Discretionary fund available upon request. No cap. Emily stared at it. No cap. That meant whoever owned this place now wasn't messing around. She started making a list. At 9:50 a.m., Emily walked into the boardroom on the 4th floor, wearing the same scrubs and a hospital jacket she'd borrowed from the staff lounge. She hadn't gone home to change, didn't see the point. She wasn't here to impress anyone. The room was full, 10 people around a long table. Victoria Lynn at the head, sharp suit, sharper eyes. A few faces Emily didn't recognize. Lawyers, probably. Consultants. People who made money talking about problems instead of fixing them. And at the far end, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, was Marcus Hale. He wasn't in maintenance clothes anymore. Dark suit. No tie. He looked like someone who'd spent decades making decisions other people had to live with. Emily took a seat. Victoria started talking. Quarterly projections, revenue streams, cost-cutting measures. Emily half listened. Most of it was noise. Then Victoria turned to her. "Miss Carter, you've had less than 24 hours to review the ER operations. Initial thoughts?" Emily didn't sugarcoat it. "It's a mess." Someone across the table shifted, a man in his 50s, expensive watch, thinning hair. "Could you elaborate?" "The ER is understaffed, underfunded, and running on equipment that should have been replaced 5 years ago. Nurses are burning out. Physicians don't stick around. Patients wait 4 hours for a bed. And the biggest problem? No one's been held accountable." The man's face tightened. "We've operated within budget." Operating within budget doesn't mean operating well. "We've met all regulatory requirements. Meeting the minimum isn't a strategy, it's surrender." The room went quiet. Victoria leaned forward. "What do you need?" Emily pulled out her list. "I need 10 additional nurses. Full-time, benefits, competitive pay. I need 2 more attending physicians on staff instead of contractors. I need new monitors, updated crash carts, and a portable ultrasound that actually works. And I need every piece of documentation reviewed so we're not sending people home to die because someone's terrified of a lawsuit." The man with the expensive watch laughed. "You're talking about millions of dollars. I'm talking about doing the job right. We can't just—" Victoria cut him off. "Approved." The man blinked. "Excuse me?" "Everything she just asked for. Approved. Make it happen." "You can't be serious." Victoria's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "I am. And unless you want to explain to our primary investor why you're blocking initiatives that save lives, I suggest you start drafting the contracts." The man's face went red. But he didn't argue, just looked down at his notepad and started writing. Emily glanced at Hale. He didn't smile, just gave her a small nod. The meeting continued. Budget approvals, facility upgrades, legal reviews. Emily tuned most of it out. When it was over, people filed out. Victoria stayed behind. "You don't waste time, do you?" "No point," Emily said. "Good. Just so you know, there's going to be resistance. Staff who don't like change, physicians who don't want oversight, administrators who think you're overstepping. Let them think that." Victoria smiled, thin, controlled. "You remind me of someone I used to work with. Special Forces medic. Never took no for an answer." "Did it work out for him?" "Her, and yes, she ended up running a trauma center in Chicago." Emily stood. "I'll take that as a vote of confidence." "It is." Emily left. By noon, the ER was buzzing. Word had spread fast. New chief, big changes coming. Some people were excited. Others were nervous. A few were pissed. Emily walked through the department like she'd never left, checked supplies, talked to staff, watched how people moved, who collaborated, who avoided eye contact. Jenna found her near the med room. "Is it true?" "Is what true? That you're in charge now?" "Yeah." Jenna's face broke into a grin. "Holy shit. Don't get too excited. There's a lot of work ahead." "I don't care. You actually give a damn. That's more than we've had in years." Emily almost smiled. Almost. "I'm going to need your help. Whatever you need. I'm restructuring the schedule, pulling people off rotations that don't make sense. I want you to help me figure out who's capable of taking on more responsibility." Jenna nodded. "Done. And I need you to be honest. If someone's not pulling their weight, I need to know. Even if it's someone I like?" "Especially then." Jenna hesitated, then nodded again. "Okay." Emily kept moving, checked on the boy she'd saved. He was in pediatrics now, awake, eating. His father was sitting beside him, holding his hand. When he saw Emily, he stood up. You're the nurse who—" "Yeah. They told me you got fired." "I did. Then I got rehired." The father's eyes went wet. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to. Just make sure he follows up with his doctors. I will. I swear. Emily left before he could say anything else. At 3 p.m., the first real test came. A trauma rolled in. Car accident. 2 victims. Driver and passenger. The driver was conscious. Fractured ribs, possible internal bleeding. The passenger was unconscious. Head trauma. Unresponsive. Emily was in the trauma bay before the ambulance doors even closed. Talk to me. The paramedic rattled off vitals. Blood pressure dropping. GCS of 6. Pupils unequal. Emily's hands moved on autopilot. Airway secured. Lines placed. Monitors hooked up. Page neurosurgery. Now. One of the techs hesitated. Dr. Brennan's in surgery. He won't. I don't care what he's doing. Page him. The tech paged him. 5 minutes later, Dr. Brennan walked in. 50-something, tall, arrogant, the kind of surgeon who thought everyone else was just there to hold instruments. What's this about? Head trauma, possible epidural hematoma. Needs a CT and probable surgery. Brennan looked at the monitor. Who authorized the CT? I did. You're not a physician. I'm the chief of this department, and that patient's dying. So either you take him upstairs or I call someone who will. Brennan's jaw tightened. You don't get to make that call. I just did. They stared at each other. The room was silent except for the beeping of the monitors. Brennan looked at the patient, then back at Emily. Fine, but if this is a waste of my time, it won't be. He left, took the patient with him. Emily turned back to the driver, stabilized him, sent him for imaging. By the time she was done, her scrubs were soaked with sweat. Jenna pulled her aside. Brennan's going to complain. Let him. He's got pull with the board. Not anymore. Jenna looked at her. You're really not scared of them, are you? No. Why not? Emily didn't answer, just walked away. At 6 p.m., Emily was in her office reviewing staffing reports when her door opened without a knock. A man walked in. White coat, graying hair. She didn't recognize him. Can I help you? Dr. Raymond Collier, Chief of Medicine. Emily looked up. I didn't ask for a meeting. I know. I'm giving you one anyway. He sat down without being invited. I've been hearing things, Collier said. Good things, I hope. Depends on your perspective. You've been here less than 12 hours, and you're already making enemies. I'm making changes. Same thing. Emily leaned back. Is there a point to this? The point is you need to be careful. You're stepping on toes, important toes. Whose? Brennan, for one. He called me an hour ago, said you disrespected him in front of his staff. I asked him to do his job. He's one of the best neurosurgeons in the state. Then he shouldn't have a problem taking a head trauma seriously. Collier's eyes narrowed. You think you're untouchable because someone upstairs likes you. I think I'm doing what I was hired to do, which is run the ER, save lives, hold people accountable. Even if it pisses people off? Especially then. Collier stood. You're going to burn out fast if you keep this up. Maybe, but at least I'll go down swinging. He left. Emily sat there for a moment. Then she went back to work. At 9 p.m., Emily finally left the hospital. She was exhausted. Her feet hurt. Her head was pounding. But she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. She drove home, parked, walked upstairs, unlocked her door. The apartment was dark, cold. She flipped on the lights and froze. Someone was sitting on her couch. Marcus Hale. How the hell did you get in here? I own the building. Emily's pulse kicked. You what? Bought it this morning. You're getting a rent reduction, by the way. Retroactive to last month. She didn't know whether to laugh or throw something. You can't just... I can. And I did. He stood. We need to talk. About what? About what happens next. Emily closed the door, tossed her keys on the counter. I'm listening. Hale walked to the window, looked out at the city. You made a lot of noise today, that's good, but it's also dangerous. I know. Do you? Because the people you're up against don't fight fair. They'll smile to your face and stab you in the back the second you turn around. Let them try. Hale turned. I'm serious, Carter. You've got a target on your back now, and not everyone's going to be happy about the way things are changing. I didn't take this job to make friends. No. You took it because you don't know how to quit. He stepped closer. But you need to understand something. This isn't a battlefield. There are no rules of engagement, no Geneva Convention, just people protecting their territory. Emily met his eyes. Then I'll take their territory. Hale smiled. That's what I was hoping you'd say. He walked to the door, stopped. One more thing. There's going to be a situation tomorrow, something big. I can't tell you what, but when it happens, you need to be ready. Ready for what? To prove you're not just talk. He left. Emily stood there in the silence, her mind racing. She didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, Emily was back at the hospital by 6:30 a.m. The ER was already busy, a couple of chest pains, a kid with a broken arm. Nothing unusual. Then at 8:47 a.m., everything changed. The ambulance bay doors flew open, paramedics rushed in with a gurney. A woman, mid-30s, seizing, unresponsive. What happened? Found her in her car, unresponsive, possible overdose. Narcan didn't work. Emily's instincts flared. Get her in Trauma 1 now. They moved fast. Got her on the bed. Monitors hooked up. Emily checked her airway. Clear. Breathing shallow, pupils pinpoint. Push another round of Narcan. We already gave her 2. Do it anyway. They did. Nothing. Emily's mind raced. If it wasn't opioids, what was it? Benzos, alcohol, something else? Pull a tox screen, full panel, and get me a glucose. The results came back fast. Glucose was normal, but the tox screen lit up like a Christmas tree. Fentanyl, xylazine, and something else, something the lab tech couldn't identify. What the hell is that? The tech shook his head. I don't know. I've never seen it before. Emily's blood went cold. How many cases like this have we had? This week? 3. All the same presentation, all unresponsive to Narcan. And 2 died. Emily looked at the woman, thought about the kid she'd saved, about every patient she'd lost because the system didn't move fast enough. Not this one. She intubated the woman, pushed aggressive fluids, started supportive care, called toxicology, called the county health department, called everyone she could think of. By noon, the woman was stable, barely, but stable. And by 2 p.m., Emily had her answer. It wasn't just an overdose. It was a contaminated supply, something new on the streets, something deadly, and it was spreading. She called Victoria. We've got a problem. Talk to me. There's a contaminated drug supply hitting Denver. We've had 3 cases in a week. I think we're about to see a lot more. What do you need? I need space. I need staff. I need the county to issue a public health alert, and I need it now. Done. Victoria hung up. Emily stood in the middle of the ER, watching people move. Nurses, techs, physicians. None of them knew what was coming. But she did. And she wasn't going to let them drown. She pulled Jenna aside. Clear Bay 6 and 7. We're setting up an overdose protocol. Anyone who comes in with altered mental status gets the full workup. No exceptions. Emily, we don't have the space. We will. Make it happen. Jenna left. Emily turned back to the board, watched the patient names scroll, waited. At 4:17 p.m., the first one came in. At 5:03, another. By 7 p.m., they had 6. By midnight, the ER was overrun. And standing in the middle of it all, covered in sweat and someone else's blood, Emily Carter realized something. This wasn't just a test. This was war. And somewhere in the city, someone was watching, waiting to see if she'd break. She looked up at the security camera in the corner of the room, wondered who was on the other end. Then she went back to work, because breaking wasn't an option. Not today. Not ever. The overdoses didn't stop. By 2 a.m., Emily had seen 14 patients with the same presentation: altered mental status, pinpoint pupils, respiratory depression that didn't respond to Narcan. 2 had coded. 1 didn't make it. The other was on a ventilator in the ICU, brain activity uncertain. The ER looked like a combat zone, every bay full. Gurneys lining the hallways, families crying, staff running on fumes. Emily hadn't sat down in 6 hours, hadn't eaten, hadn't stopped moving. Jenna found her at the nurse's station, reviewing labs on her 4th patient of the shift. "We're out of beds." Emily didn't look up. "What about the overflow unit?" "Full. ICU's full. We've got 2 people waiting for transfer to county, but they're not accepting." "Why not?" "They're slammed too. Same thing. Overdoses everywhere." Emily's jaw tightened. She pulled out her phone, dialed Victoria's direct line. It rang twice. "It's 3 in the morning, Carter." "I know, I need authorization to open the auxiliary wing. That wing's been closed for 2 years. It's not staffed." "Then staff it. I've got patients dying in hallways because we don't have space." Victoria was quiet for a moment. Emily could hear her breathing, thinking. "How many people do you need?" 6 nurses, 2 techs, 1 physician, and I need them in 4 hours." "That's not possible." "Make it possible." Another pause. Then, "I'll see what I can do." The line went dead. Emily turned to Jenna. "Start prepping the auxiliary wing. Clean beds, check the equipment. If it's not functional, flag it." "Emily, we don't have the staff." "We will." Jenna left. Emily went back to work. Another patient rolled in. 19 years old, male, found unconscious in a park. His friends had run when the ambulance arrived. Standard. She intubated him, got him stable, sent him up to the ICU. By 4 a.m., the auxiliary wing was open. 6 contract nurses showed up, pulled from other hospitals, agency workers, people who charged triple overtime but knew what they were doing. Emily put them to work immediately. No orientation, no hand-holding, just point and shoot. By 6 a.m., they'd saved 3 more lives. By 7 a.m., Emily's hands were shaking from the adrenaline crash. She stepped outside into the ambulance bay. The air was cold, sharp. The sun was just starting to break over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gray. She leaned against the brick wall and closed her eyes. "You look like hell." She opened her eyes. Marcus Hale was standing there, holding 2 cups of coffee. He handed her one. "Thanks. How bad is it?" 17 patients in 12 hours, 3 dead, 2 in ICS. The rest are stable, but barely. Hale sipped his coffee. "The news is picking it up. Health department issued an alert an hour ago." "Good. Maybe it'll slow things down." "It won't." Emily looked at him. "You sound sure." "I am. This isn't random. Someone's flooding the streets with contaminated product. On purpose." "Why?" "To send a message." Emily's blood went cold. "To who?" Hale didn't answer, just looked out at the city. "You need to be careful." "I'm always careful." "No, you're always reckless. There's a difference." Emily almost laughed. "You're one to talk." Hale turned to her. His face was serious. "I mean it, Carter. You're making waves, and waves attract sharks. Let them come." "They already have." Before Emily could ask what he meant, her pager went off. Trauma activation. Multiple victims. Mass casualty. She ran inside. The scene was chaos. A nightclub fire. 40 people injured, smoke inhalation, burns, crush injuries from the stampede. The first ambulance arrived at 7:14 a.m. By 7:30, there were 8 more. Emily triaged in the ambulance bay. Red tags for critical, yellow for urgent, green for walking wounded. She moved fast. No hesitation. Muscle memory from deployments she didn't talk about. "This one's not breathing. Intubate and move. Next. Severe burns on the tag red. Get him inside. Next." She worked through 20 patients in 15 minutes. Her voice was hoarse. Her scrubs were covered in soot and blood. But she didn't stop. Inside the ER was a symphony of controlled chaos. Nurses moving in sync, physicians calling out orders, techs running labs, everyone doing exactly what they were trained to do. Emily was in trauma too, with a woman who'd been trampled, broken ribs, possible pneumothorax. She was conscious, screaming, "I can't breathe. I can't." "You're breathing right now. I need you to stay calm." "It hurts." "I know. We're going to fix it." Emily placed a chest tube. The woman's lung reinflated. Her oxygen levels climbed. She stopped screaming. "Better?" The woman nodded, tears streaming down her face. Emily moved to the next patient. By 9 a.m., the initial wave had stabilized. No deaths. Not yet. But the ICU was full again. The burn unit was activating external transfers, and the hospital was officially in disaster mode. Emily was washing blood off her hands in the staff bathroom when Dr. Collier walked in. "You can't keep doing this." Emily didn't turn around. "Doing what?" "Running yourself into the ground. You've been here for 26 hours straight. So? So you're going to make a mistake, and someone's going to die." Emily dried her hands, turned to face him. "I've been making life or death decisions on no sleep since I was 23 years old. I know my limits." "Do you?" "Yeah, and I'm nowhere near them." Collier stepped closer. "You think you're invincible. You're not." "I never said I was." "Then prove it. Go home. Get some rest. Let someone else take over." Emily looked him in the eye. "Who?" Collier didn't have an answer. "That's what I thought." Emily walked past him and back into the ER. At 11 a.m., the hospital received a call from the mayor's office. They wanted a press conference. Wanted to show the city that Northgate was handling the crisis. Wanted Emily front and center. She refused. Victoria called her directly. "This is important. I'm busy. The public needs to see a face, someone competent, someone they can trust." "Then put a politician up there. That's what they're good at." "They want a doctor." "I'm not a doctor." "They don't know that. And your title says Chief of Emergency Medicine. That's enough." Emily was standing in the medication room restocking supplies while she talked. "I don't do press conferences." "You do now. It's at 2 o'clock. Wear something clean." The line went dead. Emily swore under her breath. At 1:47 p.m., she was in the hospital lobby wearing scrubs she'd borrowed from the OR. They were too big. She didn't care. A makeup artist tried to powder her face. Emily waved her off. "I'm fine." "You're shiny." "I've been saving lives for 30 hours. I'm allowed to be shiny." The mayor arrived, a man in his 50s with perfect hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He shook Emily's hand. "Dr. Carter, thank you for doing this." "I'm not a doctor." "The public doesn't need to know that." Emily pulled her hand back. "I'm not lying." "It's not lying, it's messaging. It's bullshit." The mayor's smile tightened. "Just follow my lead. Answer the questions. Keep it simple." The press conference started. Cameras. Reporters. Microphones shoved in her face. The mayor talked for 5 minutes. Said a lot of words that didn't mean anything. Then he turned to Emily. "Dr. Carter has been on the front lines of this crisis. She's seen firsthand the devastation caused by this contaminated drug supply. Dr. Carter, can you speak to what you've witnessed?" Emily looked at the cameras, at the reporters, at the people watching from home who had no idea what it was like inside these walls. "We've treated over 40 overdose patients in the last 48 hours. 3 have died. 2 are in critical condition. The rest are alive because we have staff who refuse to give up. But we're running out of space, running out of resources. And if this continues, we're going to start running out of time. What would you say to the families affected by this crisis?" Emily's jaw tightened. "I'd say get angry. Because this isn't an accident. Someone's putting poison on the streets, and people are dying because of it." One of the reporters raised her hand. "Are you saying this is intentional?" "I'm saying the evidence suggests it." The mayor stepped in. "What Dr. Carter means is, I mean exactly what I said." Emily looked directly at the camera. "Someone's killing people, and if law enforcement isn't going to do something about it, then the community needs to." The mayor's face went pale. "Dr. Carter, we're done here." Emily walked off the platform. Behind her, the reporters erupted. Questions flying, cameras flashing, the mayor scrambling to regain control. Emily kept walking, out of the lobby, back to the ER, back to where she was needed. Victoria caught her in the hallway. "That was reckless. That was the truth. You just accused someone of mass murder on live television." "Good. Maybe it'll light a fire under someone's ass." Victoria grabbed her arm. "You don't understand. You just painted a target on your back. I've had targets on my back before." "Not like this." Emily pulled her arm free. "I need to get back to work." She left Victoria standing there. At 4 p.m., the DEA showed up. 2 agents, dark suits, federal badges. They asked to speak with Emily in private. She took them to her office. Miss Carter, I'm Agent Rebecca Marsh. This is Agent David Tran. We need to ask you some questions. Emily sat behind her desk. About what? About the statements you made during the press conference. Which ones? You said someone's intentionally poisoning the drug supply. What evidence do you have? Emily pulled up the lab reports on her computer, turned the screen toward them. Every overdose patient we've seen in the last week has tested positive for fentanyl mixed with xylazine and an unknown synthetic compound. The concentration levels are consistent across cases. That's not random. That's manufacturing. Marsh studied the screen. Where are these labs being processed? In-house. County toxicology confirmed. Tran leaned forward. Have you shared this information with anyone else? The health department, the medical examiner, and now you. Anyone outside official channels? Emily's eyes narrowed. Why? Because we're investigating a trafficking organization that's been operating in Denver for 6 months, and your press conference just told them we're on to them. Emily's stomach dropped. You think they're going to retaliate? We think they already are. Marsh pulled out a photo, slid it across the desk. It was a man, mid-30s, Hispanic, dead, bullet wound to the head. This is Miguel Santos, street dealer, found shot in an alley 3 hours ago. He was one of our informants. Emily stared at the photo. You think it's connected? We know it is, and we think you just made yourself a very visible target. Tran stood. We're going to station a protective detail outside the hospital. Plain clothes. You won't see them, but they'll be there. I don't need protection. It's not optional, Marsh said. You're a witness now, whether you like it or not. They left. Emily sat there, staring at the photo of Miguel Santos, at the hole in his head, at the life that had been erased because he'd tried to do the right thing. Her hands were shaking. She closed the laptop, went back to work. By 8 p.m., the ER had quieted. Not empty. Never empty, but manageable. Emily was in the break room eating a sandwich that tasted like cardboard when Marcus walked in. You should go home. I'm fine. You've been here for 36 hours. 34. Marcus sat down across from her. The DEA came to see me too. Emily looked up. Why? Because I'm the one who flagged the contamination pattern, sent the samples to a private lab for analysis. And they think the organization behind this is bigger than anyone realized. National network, military-grade logistics. They're not just dealing drugs, they're waging economic warfare. Emily set the sandwich down. What does that mean? It means they target cities, flood the market with cheap product, destabilize law enforcement, create chaos. Then they move into other markets, guns, human trafficking, extortion. And Denver's the latest target. Denver's the testing ground. If they succeed here, they'll replicate it in 20 other cities. Emily leaned back. So what do we do? We keep doing what we're doing. Save lives, document everything, give the feds what they need to build a case. And if they come after us, Marcus's face was hard. Then we remind them who they're dealing with. Emily almost smiled. Almost. Then her pager went off. Trauma activation. She ran. The trauma was a gunshot wound. Male, mid-20s, shot twice in the chest. He was barely conscious when they wheeled him in, blood everywhere. Emily didn't hesitate. Get me 2 units Oneg, start a massive transfusion protocol, someone page surgery. She cut his shirt open. 2 entry wounds, right chest, left abdomen, no exit wounds. The bullets were still inside. Pressure's dropping. Push the blood, get me a chest tube kit. She placed the tube. Blood poured out. Dark. Fast. Too fast. He's got a hemothorax. He's bleeding into his chest cavity. Pressure 70/40. Where the hell is surgery? Dr. Patel ran in. Took one look. OR's ready. Let's move. They rushed the patient upstairs. Emily stayed with him, held pressure on the wounds while they ran, got him into the OR, scrubbed in even though she wasn't supposed to. Patel didn't stop her. The surgery took 4 hours. They removed both bullets, repaired the damage, transfused 12 units of blood. The patient's pressure stabilized. Emily stepped out of the OR at 1:23 a.m., pulled off her mask. Her hands were covered in blood. A police officer was waiting in the hallway. "Ms. Carter?" "Yeah. I need to ask you some questions about the patient. He's still in surgery." "I know, but we need to know if he said anything, any names, any details about who shot him." Emily's exhaustion was bone deep. "He was unconscious." "You're sure?" "Positive." The officer handed her a card. "If he wakes up and says anything, call me. Immediately." Emily took the card. Didn't look at it, just walked away. She went back to the ER, sat in her office, stared at the wall. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "You should have kept your mouth shut." Emily's pulse kicked. She stared at the message. Then another one came through. "People who talk too much don't live long." She stood, walked to the door, looked out into the ER. Everything seemed normal, staff working, patients waiting, but her instincts were screaming. She called Marcus. "Someone just threatened me." "What?" She read him the messages. "Where are you?" "My office." "Stay there, lock the door. I'm calling security." "Marcus?" "Do it now." She locked the door, sat down. Her hand went to the bottom drawer of her desk. Inside was something she hadn't touched in years. A Glock 19, unloaded. She'd kept it after her discharge, never thought she'd need it. She loaded it now. 5 minutes later, there was a knock. "Miss Carter, security?" She opened the door. 2 guards, both armed, both looking serious. "We're going to escort you out. There's a car waiting." "I'm not leaving." "Ma'am, we have orders." "I don't care. I'm not leaving my patients." One of the guards spoke into his radio. A moment later, Marcus's voice came through. "Carter, get in the damn car." "No. This isn't a debate." "You're right. It's not. I'm staying." Silence. Then, "Fine, but you're getting protection. 2 guards outside your office, 2 in the ER, and you don't go anywhere alone." "Deal." The guards took their positions. Emily went back to work. At 3 a.m., the gunshot victim woke up. Emily was at his bedside when his eyes opened. Where am I?" "Northgate Regional. You were shot. You're safe now." He tried to sit up, winced. I need to get out of here." "You're not going anywhere. You just had surgery." "You don't understand. They'll come for me." "Who?" He looked at her, fear in his eyes, real fear. "The people I work for, if they find out I'm alive, you're under police protection. That won't stop them." Emily leaned closer. "What's your name?" He hesitated. "Carlos." "Carlos, I need you to tell me what happened." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because if I talk, they'll kill my family." Emily's chest tightened. "The police can protect them." Carlos laughed, bitter, broken. "You don't know these people. They own half the cops in this city." "Then talk to the feds." "And say what? That I've been running drugs for a cartel? That I watched them mix poison into the supply and didn't say anything?" Emily's blood went cold. "You knew?" "Of course I knew. We all knew. But you don't say no to them, not if you want to live." "Who's them?" Carlos closed his eyes. "I'm tired." "Carlos, I'm done talking." Emily stood, walked out, called Agent Marsh. "The gunshot victim from tonight. He's awake, and he knows who's behind the contamination." "We'll be there in 20 minutes." Emily hung up, went back to Carlos's room. He was staring at the ceiling. "Federal agents are coming. You need to tell them everything." "They can't protect me." "They can if you cooperate." "You don't get it. These people don't just kill you. They make you disappear. Your whole family. Like you never existed." Emily pulled up a chair, sat down. "I was a combat medic. I've seen what cartels do. I know what you're risking, but if you don't talk, more people die. Kids, parents, people who have nothing to do with this." Carlos looked at her. "Why do you care?" "Because it's my job." "Your job is to fix people, not save the world." "Sometimes they're the same thing." Carlos was quiet for a long moment. Then, "There's a warehouse, east side, near the rail yard. That's where they cut the product." "You know the address?" "Yeah." "Tell the agents, give them everything, and maybe you get to live." Carlos nodded, slow. resigned. 20 minutes later, Marsh and Tron arrived. Took Carlos's statement, left with enough information to launch a raid. Emily went back to her office, sat down, checked her phone. Another message. Last warning. This time there was a photo attached. It was her apartment building, taken from across the street. Tonight. Emily's hands went cold. She called Marcus. They know where I live. Pack a bag, you're moving. Tonight. Where? Somewhere they won't find you. An hour later, Emily was in a car. Not the SUV. A sedan. Unmarked, driven by someone she didn't know. They drove for 30 minutes. Pulled up to a building she didn't recognize. High-rise, secure entrance, cameras everywhere. Top floor, penthouse, it's yours for as long as you need it. Emily got out, took the elevator up. The penthouse was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, a view of the entire city, and standing in the living room, waiting, was Marcus Hale. Welcome home. Emily dropped her bag. This is overkill. This is necessary. I don't need... Yes, you do. He walked to the window. The DEA's raiding the warehouse in 4 hours. If Carlos was telling the truth, they'll find enough evidence to dismantle the entire operation. And if he wasn't, then we're all in a lot of trouble. Emily joined him at the window, looked out at the city, at the lights, at the darkness between them. You think they'll come after me? I think they already did, and I think tomorrow's going to be the day we find out if we're ready. Emily didn't sleep that night, just stood at the window, watching, waiting. At 6 a.m., her phone rang. Agent Marsh. We hit the warehouse. It's worse than we thought. How bad? 3 dead, all execution style. The product's gone, and we found something else. What? A list. Names, addresses, photos. Emily's stomach dropped. Whose? Yours, and about 20 other people. Doctors, nurses, DEA agents, anyone who got too close. Emily's grip tightened on the phone. They're targeting us. Not anymore. We got them. What? The raid triggered a panic. 3 suspects tried to run. We have them in custody, and one of them's talking. Emily let out a breath. Is it over? Marsh paused. For now. Emily hung up, turned to Marcus. They got them. Marcus nodded. Good. It's over. Maybe. Emily looked at him. What does that mean? It means the people we caught are foot soldiers. The real power. They're still out there. Then what do we do? Marcus smiled, cold, dangerous. We make them come to us. Before Emily could respond, her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Another message. But this one was different. You won, for now, but this isn't over. We'll be watching. And when you slip, and you will, we'll be there. Signed, a friend. Emily stared at the screen. Then she showed Marcus. His face went hard. Change of plans. You're not going back to the hospital. Not yet. Why? Because whoever sent that message isn't bluffing. Emily's pulse kicked. What are you saying? I'm saying the war just started. And somewhere in the city, in a room Emily would never see, someone was watching a live feed of the penthouse. Watching her, waiting, and smiling. Emily stared at the message for a long time. Then she set the phone down on the counter and walked to the window. The city was waking up. Traffic building. People heading to work. Normal lives. Normal problems. None of them knowing that somewhere out there someone was watching, waiting for her to make a mistake. Marcus was on his phone, voice low and clipped. When he hung up, his face was tight. We need to talk. About what? About who sent that message. Emily turned. You know, I have a theory. He pulled up something on his tablet, showed her a photo. It was a man, late 40s, expensive suit, silver hair, sharp eyes. Recognize him? Emily shook her head. No, who is he? David Keller, former hospital administrator, worked at Northgate until 6 months ago. What happened? He got caught skimming funds, kickbacks from pharmaceutical reps, falsifying insurance claims. The board forced him out quietly to avoid a scandal. Emily's stomach tightened. What's he got to do with this? Everything. He didn't just disappear. He went to work for a consulting firm that specializes in healthcare acquisitions. The same firm that tried to buy Northgate 3 times before I did. And you think he's behind the threats? I think he's connected. The timing's too convenient. The hospital gets sold. You get hired. The overdose crisis starts. And suddenly there's a hit list with your name on it. Emily processed that. You think he's working with the cartel? I think he's working with someone who has a vested interest in seeing this hospital fail. Why? Because if Northgate collapses, it creates a vacuum, and vacuums get filled by whoever has the most money and the least scruples. Emily's jaw tightened. So what do? We find proof, and we bury him. At 8 a.m., Emily was back at the hospital. 2 armed guards flanked her from the parking garage to her office. Staff stared, whispered. She ignored them all. The ER was already busy. A chest pain in Bay 2, someone vomiting blood in 4, a screaming child with a fever in triage. The usual Thursday morning chaos. Emily walked through it without stopping. She had other things to deal with first. Victoria was waiting in her office, standing by the window with her arms crossed. You're all over the news. Emily tossed her bag on the desk. Good or bad? Both. Half the city thinks you're a hero. The other half thinks you're reckless. What do you think? Victoria smiled, thin. I think you're exactly what this place needs. But you've made enemies. Powerful ones. I know. Do you? Because David Keller's lawyers filed a defamation suit this morning. Emily's blood went cold. For what? For implying during the press conference that someone was intentionally poisoning people. He's claiming you damaged his reputation by association. That's insane. I never mentioned his name. Doesn't matter. His legal team is arguing that your statements created a hostile environment that led to his professional ostracization. Emily sat down, rubbed her face. She'd been awake for 38 hours straight, and her brain felt like it was moving through mud. This is a shakedown. It's a distraction. He wants you focused on legal battles instead of running the ER. Then he's going to be disappointed. Victoria leaned forward. Emily, this isn't something you can ignore. If he wins, it sets a precedent. Every administrator you've pissed off will come after you. Let them. I've got work to do. Victoria studied her for a moment, then nodded. All right, but you need a lawyer. I'll set it up. She left. Emily pulled up her email, scrolled through the usual noise, policy updates, scheduling requests, complaints from physicians who didn't like being told what to do. Then she saw something that made her stop. A message from an internal address she didn't recognize. No subject line, just a file attachment. She hesitated. Thought about viruses, phishing scams, all the ways someone could compromise a system. Then she opened it anyway. It was a financial report, dated 6 months ago. Detailed transactions between Northgate Regional and a shell company called Apex Health Solutions. Millions of dollars. Transfers disguised as equipment purchases and consulting fees. Payments that didn't match any actual deliveries or services. And at the bottom, a signature. David Keller. Emily's pulse kicked. She forwarded the email to Victoria and Marcus. Then she called Agent Marsh. I just found something you need to see. You guys saw it. By noon, the DEA had opened a second investigation, not just into the cartel, into the financial fraud at Northgate. Turns out Keller hadn't just been skimming. He'd been running a full-scale embezzlement operation, funneling hospital funds into offshore accounts, using fake vendors, bribing board members to approve contracts that didn't exist. And when the new ownership took over, he'd panicked, started reaching out to people who could make problems disappear, people who didn't care about collateral damage. Marsh showed up at Emily's office with Tran at 12:47 p.m. They spread documents across her desk like they were building a case in real time. We've been digging into Apex Health Solutions. It's a front, owned by a network of shell companies that trace back to Keller and 3 other former administrators. Emily scanned the documents, names she didn't recognize, amounts that made her sick. How much did they steal? Conservatively, $12 million over 4 years. Jesus. And that's just what we've found so far. Marsh pulled out another file. But here's the interesting part. One of the companies in the network, it's owned by the same people who run the drug trafficking operation. Emily's head snapped up. You're saying Keller's connected to the cartel? We're saying he's on their payroll. He helps them launder money through the hospital. They help him make problems disappear. Tran leaned forward. We think the contaminated drug supply wasn't just about profit. It was about creating chaos, overwhelming the ER, making the hospital look incompetent, driving down its value so Keller's people could buy it back for pennies on the dollar. Emily felt sick. They were willing to kill people just to tank a business deal? People like Keller don't see bodies. They see numbers. Marsh stood. We're bringing him in for questioning, but we need you to keep doing what you're doing. If he thinks you're backing down, he'll cover his tracks. I'm not backing down. Good, because we're going to need you to testify when this goes to trial. They left. Emily sat there staring at the documents, at the names, at the money, at the people who'd been sacrificed so a few men in suits could get richer. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. Her phone buzzed, text from Marcus. Keller just hired a crisis PR firm. He's going on the offensive. Emily didn't reply, just stood up and walked back into the ER. She had patients to see, lives to save, work that actually mattered. The afternoon was steady, a broken wrist that needed reduction, a kid with an asthma attack who responded well to albuterol, a woman in labor who'd waited too long to come in and delivered in Bay 6 with Emily coaching her through it while they waited for OB. Normal chaos, the kind Emily could handle in her sleep. But at 3 p.m., Jenna pulled her aside near the medication room. There's a reporter in the lobby. Says she wants to talk to you. Tell her I'm busy. She says it's about David Keller. Emily stopped, turned. What's her name? Sandra Orozco. Investigative journalist, works for the Denver Post. Emily thought for a moment, calculated the risk, then, bring her to my office. 5 minutes later, Sandra Orozco was sitting across from Emily. Mid-30s, sharp eyes, no makeup, recorder on the desk between them like a challenge. I appreciate you seeing me. You've got 5 minutes. Sandra didn't waste time. I've been investigating David Keller for 3 years. I know about the embezzlement. I know about the shell companies. I know he's connected to organized crime, but I can't prove it. Not without someone on the inside willing to go on record. And you think I'm that someone? I think you're the only person with enough credibility and evidence to make the story stick. Emily leaned back, studied her, looked for the tells that said this was someone who'd sell her out for clicks. Didn't find them. Why should I trust you? Because I don't work for anyone but the truth. And because Keller's been getting away with this for too long. People are dead because of him. And if we don't stop him now, more will die. Emily thought about the financial report, about Carlos lying in a hospital bed terrified for his family, about the overdose victims, about the boy she'd saved and the 3 people she hadn't, about the lives destroyed so a few men could get rich. I'll give you everything I have, but I want a guarantee. What kind? That you'll publish it, all of it, no matter who tries to stop you, no matter what threats come, no matter what lawyers say. Sandra met her eyes. You have my word. Emily pulled out a flash drive from her desk drawer. She'd copied everything that morning, just in case. Everything's on there, financial records, emails, testimonies, lab reports, timelines. Use it. Sandra took the drive like it was something precious. This is going to blow up. Good. Sandra stood, hesitated at the door. One more thing. Keller's going to come after you for this. Hard. Let him try. Sandra smiled, small, genuine. I like you, Ms. Carter. Don't. I'm not doing this to be liked. Sandra left. Emily sat there for a moment, thought about what she'd just done, the box she'd just opened. Then she went back to work, because hesitating wouldn't change anything. At 6 p.m., the story broke. Former hospital administrator linked to embezzlement and drug trafficking ring. The Denver Post ran it front page, online, social media. Cable news picked it up within the hour. Names, numbers, connections, bank records. Everything Sandra Orozco had spent 3 years chasing, laid out in forensic detail. Diagrams showing money flow. Quotes from unnamed sources. And at the center of it all, David Keller. Emily was in the ER when her phone started blowing up. Calls, texts, messages from people she hadn't heard from in years. Old Army buddies, nursing school classmates, a few reporters asking for comment. She ignored all of it. turned her phone on silent, went back to work. At 7:30 p.m., Victoria called the ER directly. Had the unit clerk track Emily down. "Have you seen the news?" "Yeah. Keller's lawyers are having a meltdown. They're threatening to sue the Post. Sue you. Sue everyone involved." "Good luck with that." "Emily, this is serious. He's going to fight back. And he's got money, resources, connections." "Let him. The truth's out now. He can't bury it." Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then, "You know what you just did, right?" "Yeah, I ended him." "You declared war." "He started it." Victoria hung up. Emily went back to work. But an hour later, security called her office. "Ms. Carter, we've got a situation in the lobby." Emily's pulse kicked. She thought about the threats, about the list. "What kind?" "Protesters, about 30 of them. They're asking to speak with you." "What are they protesting?" There was a pause. "They're not. They're supporting you." Emily walked to the lobby, stopped at the entrance, and just stood there. The crowd wasn't large. Maybe 40 people, some holding signs hastily made from poster board and markers. "Thank you, Dr. Carter. Heroes work here. Justice for the victims." A few had photos of loved ones, Emily realized. People who'd died from overdoses, people who'd been saved, families, parents, teenagers, people whose lives had been touched by the crisis, by the care they'd received at Northgate, by the fight Emily had waged without asking permission. One man stepped forward. Emily recognized him immediately. The father of the boy she'd saved, the one who'd started all of this. He looked different now, less desperate, more grounded. "We just wanted to say thank you for not giving up, for standing up when no one else would, for remembering that we're people, not billing codes." Emily didn't know what to say. Words felt inadequate, so she just nodded. The crowd clapped. Some cried. One woman shouted, "We love you!" And Emily felt her throat tighten. Then they dispersed quietly, like they'd only come to deliver a message and nothing more. Emily stood there in the empty lobby afterward, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. At 10 p.m., Emily was finally heading to her car when Marcus called. "Turn on the news." She pulled up the live stream on her phone, leaned against her car in the parking garage, and watched. David Keller was on screen. Press conference, flanked by 3 lawyers in suits that probably cost more than most people's cars, looking calm, controlled, like this was all just a minor inconvenience. "The allegations against me are baseless and defamatory. I have never engaged in criminal activity. I have never stolen from Northgate Regional, and I will be filing lawsuits against everyone involved in this smear campaign, including Ms. Carter and the Denver Post." A reporter shouted a question. "What about the financial records showing transfers to shell companies?" "Fabricated, digital manipulation. We have experts who will prove it in court." "What about the DEA investigation?" "A witch hunt orchestrated by people who want to destroy my reputation because I dared to question the new ownership's methods." Another reporter. "What about the testimony from witnesses linking you to the cartel?" Keller's smile was thin, cold. "There are no credible witnesses, just desperate people looking for someone to blame for their own poor choices." The conference ended. Keller walked away without taking more questions. Emily lowered her phone. "He's not backing down." Marcus's voice was cold. "He will." "How can you be sure?" "Because we're not done yet." The next morning, Emily arrived at the hospital at 6:30 a.m. to find federal agents in the parking lot. Not DEA this time. FBI. Black SUVs, men and women in windbreakers with big yellow letters on the back. Agent Marsh met her at the entrance, looking tired but satisfied. "We arrested Keller an hour ago." Emily's breath caught. "On what charges?" "Conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering, racketeering, and accessory to murder." "Murder?" "Miguel Santos, the informant who was killed. We found evidence linking Keller to the hit. He made the call, authorized the payment, knew exactly what would happen." Emily felt cold. "You can prove that?" "We have phone records, financial transactions, and a witness who's willing to testify." "Who?" "One of his partners. The man flipped last night to save himself. Gave us everything." Emily leaned against the wall. let herself feel it for just a second. It's over. Not yet, but it's close. We still need to dismantle the rest of the network, and we need you to testify when this goes to trial. When? Probably 6 months, maybe a year. These things take time. Marsh left. Emily walked into the hospital, took the elevator to her office, sat down behind her desk, stared at the wall. Her phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. You think you won. You didn't. We're still here, and we're patient. Emily stared at the message. Then she forwarded it to Marsh without comment. 5 minutes later, Marsh called back. We traced the number. It's a burner, but the cell tower data puts it inside the hospital. Emily's blood went cold. Someone's here? We're sending a team now. Stay in your office. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except FBI. Emily locked the door, pulled out the Glock from her desk drawer, checked the magazine. Full. 15 rounds. She set it on the desk within easy reach and waited. 3 minutes later, there was a knock. FBI, open up. Emily looked through the peephole. 2 agents, badges visible. She recognized one from yesterday. She opened the door. We're sweeping the building. We need you to stay here until we're done. How long? 30 minutes, maybe less. They left. Emily sat down, gun on the desk, phone in hand, waiting. The minutes dragged. She could hear her own heartbeat, could hear the ventilation system humming, could hear voices in the hallway, staff going about their day, completely unaware. 23 minutes later, her door opened. She grabbed the gun, aimed. It was Marcus. Jesus, put that down. Emily lowered the weapon. Her hands were shaking. You can't just walk in here. They found him. Who? The person sending the messages. He was in the maintenance department, using a hospital computer to send threats. Former employee. Got fired 2 months ago for stealing equipment. Who is he? No one important. Just a lackey Keller paid to scare you, but he's talking now, giving up names, including Keller's. Emily exhaled, set the gun down carefully. Is it over? Marcus sat across from her. The immediate threat? Yeah. But the organization? That's going to take time. How much time? Months, maybe years. These people don't go away quietly. They adapt, find new angles, new victims. Emily nodded. Then we keep fighting. You sure you're ready for that? I've been ready since the day I put on a uniform. Marcus smiled, thin, proud. I know. 2 weeks later, David Keller's trial began. The federal courthouse in downtown Denver. Massive, imposing, built to remind people that justice was bigger than any individual. Emily testified on day 3, walked into the courtroom wearing a blazer she'd borrowed from Victoria because she didn't own one, sat in the witness box, raised her right hand, swore to tell the truth. Keller's lawyers came at her hard, called her reckless, emotional, unqualified to make the statements she'd made, questioned her credentials, her judgment, her motives. Emily didn't flinch, just answered every question with facts, with evidence, with the calm, steady voice of someone who'd been cross-examined by worse people in worse places. Ms. Carter, isn't it true that you were terminated from Northgate Regional before being rehired? Yes. And isn't it true that you hold a personal grudge against hospital administration? No, I hold administrators accountable when they prioritize profit over patients. But you were fired for insubordination, correct? I was fired for saving a child's life against orders. I was rehired because the new ownership values competence over compliance. The lawyer's face tightened. He tried a different angle. Isn't it true that you have no medical degree, no authority to diagnose or treat? I'm a registered nurse with 12 years of clinical experience and 8 years of military trauma medicine. I don't diagnose, I stabilize, I save lives. That's what I was trained to do. But you overstepped your authority. I used my judgment in a crisis to prevent a death. If that's overstepping, then I'll do it again. The lawyer sat down. The prosecution called their witnesses. Financial experts, DEA agents, the man who'd flipped, each one adding another nail to Keller's coffin. The jury deliberated for 4 days. Emily wasn't in the courtroom when the verdict was read. She was at Northgate, in the ER, treating a diabetic emergency. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, but she ignored it until the patient was stable. Then she checked. Text from Victoria. Guilty. all counts. Emily stood there in the hallway, let herself feel it, not triumph, not satisfaction, just closure. Keller was sentenced 3 weeks later. 35 years in federal prison. No parole, no deals, no second chances. When Emily heard she was stitching up a laceration in Bay 4, Jenna told her, "Did you hear?" "Yeah." "Aren't you happy?" Emily tied off the last suture. "I'm relieved." "That's it?" "That's enough," Jenna smiled. "You're impossible." "I know." A month after the sentencing, the hospital held a ceremony, recognizing staff who'd gone above and beyond during the crisis. Emily didn't want to go, but Victoria insisted, said it would be good for morale, for the public image, for all the things Emily didn't care about. The auditorium was full: doctors, nurses, administrators, board members, press with cameras. Emily sat in the back row, hoping to disappear. Victoria spoke first, talked about resilience, about leadership, about the people who'd saved lives when the system tried to break them. Then she called names: nurses who'd worked triple shifts, physicians who'd stayed when they could have left, techs who'd kept equipment running on duct tape and hope. Then she called Emily to the stage. Emily walked up slowly, stood at the podium, looked out at the crowd. All those faces, some she knew, some she didn't, all of them waiting for her to say something profound. "I'm not good at speeches, so I'll keep this short. A lot of people here did things they'll never get credit for. Worked doubles, made impossible decisions, held the line when everything was falling apart. This award isn't just mine. It belongs to every single person who refused to quit, who showed up even when it was hard, who remembered that this job isn't about policies or politics. It's about people." She stepped back. The room stood, applauded. Some people were crying. Emily left the stage, walked out of the auditorium, went straight back to the ER, because that's where she belonged. 3 months later, Emily was in her office reviewing budgets, trying to figure out how to justify hiring 2 more nurses without blowing the quarterly projections, when there was a knock. "Come in." A young man walked in, mid-20s, scrubs that looked brand new, nervous energy radiating off him like heat. "Miss Carter?" "Yeah." "My name's Daniel. I'm a med student rotating through the ER this month. I just wanted to say, you're the reason I'm here." Emily looked up from the spreadsheet. "How's that?" "I was thinking about quitting, the pressure, the debt, the politics, the way people treat healthcare like it's just another business. Then I saw your press conference, the one where you called out the whole system, and I realized this job isn't about the bureaucracy, it's about the people. You reminded me why I started." Emily didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. "Don't quit. We need people like you, people who still give a damn." Daniel smiled. "Thank you." He left. Emily sat there for a moment, thought about all the people who'd quit over the years. Good people, burned out by a system that didn't value them. And then she thought about the ones who stayed, the fighters. She went back to the budget, found a way to make the numbers work. Peace. That night, Emily was leaving the hospital at 11:47 p.m. Late shift, multiple traumas, the usual Thursday chaos, when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. She was exhausted, done, ready to go home and sleep for 10 hours straight. But something made her pick up. "Hello?" Silence. Then a voice. Low, male, calm in a way that made her skin crawl. "You should have stayed quiet, Miss Carter." Emily's blood went cold. She stopped walking. "Who is this?" "Someone you haven't met yet, but you will." "If you're threatening me, I'm not threatening you. I'm making a promise. David Keller was a pawn, a useful idiot, a distraction. The real players? You haven't even seen us yet, haven't touched us." "Then show yourself." The voice laughed, cold, hollow. "In time. But first we're going to take everything you've built, everyone you care about, that hospital you think you saved. We're going to burn it to the ground, and we're going to make you watch. Try it. We don't try, Ms. Carter. We execute, and we never lose." The line went dead. Emily stood there in the parking garage, heart pounding, mind racing. She looked around, empty cars, shadows. security cameras that might or might not be working. She called Marcus. "We've got a problem." "What kind?" "The kind that doesn't end with a trial." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'll be there in 10 minutes. Don't move." Emily got in her car, locked the doors, checked the rear view mirror. Her hand went to the glove box where she now kept the Glock, and in the shadows across the street, behind a pillar she couldn't quite see, someone was watching, waiting, taking photos, uploading them to a server halfway across the world. The war wasn't over. It had just gone underground. Marcus arrived in 8 minutes, not 10. He pulled up in a black SUV that looked like it could survive a missile strike, got out, and scanned the parking garage like he was expecting contact. Emily watched him from inside her locked car, hand still on the Glock in her glove box. He knocked on her window. She unlocked the door. "You okay?" "Define okay." Marcus got in the passenger seat. "Tell me exactly what they said." Emily repeated the conversation word for word. She'd learned a long time ago to memorize details under pressure. Names, faces, threats. It was survival. When she finished, Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. "It's me. We've got active contact. Voice threat. Escalation pattern. I need full surveillance on Carter. Now." He paused. "I don't care what it costs. Make it happen." He hung up. "Who was that?" Emily asked. "Private security? Former Secret Service? They'll have eyes on you within the hour." "I don't need a babysitter." "You need someone watching your back while you're watching patients." Emily wanted to argue, but she was too tired, and he was right. "Fine, but they stay invisible. I don't want staff or patients spooked." "Done." They sat there in silence for a moment. The parking garage was empty, except for a few scattered cars. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Marcus turned to her. "You know what this means, right?" That Keller wasn't the head of the snake. Exactly. He was middle management. Someone with real power is still out there, and they just told us they're coming. Emily's jaw tightened. "Let them." "Emily, I mean it. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. And I'm sure as hell not letting them intimidate me into quitting." Marcus studied her for a long moment. "You know, most people would walk away, take the win, move on with their lives. I'm not most people." "No, you're not." He opened the door. "Go home. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start hunting." "Hunting what?" "Whoever just made the mistake of threatening you." Emily didn't sleep. She went back to the penthouse Marcus had set her up in, still couldn't believe she was living in a place with heated floors and a view that cost more than she'd make in 5 years, and spent the night going through everything, every case, every name, every connection she could think of. The contaminated drugs had come from somewhere. The money Keller stole had gone somewhere. The organization behind all of it had infrastructure, supply chains, people. And people made mistakes. By 4 a.m., she had a list of names. Administrators who'd left Northgate in the past 2 years. Physicians who'd suddenly retired. Board members who'd resigned without explanation. Anyone who might have been connected to Keller's operation. By 6 a.m., she was back at the hospital. The ER was quiet. Early morning lull before the day shift chaos began. A few overnight stragglers in the waiting room. Someone with chest pain that turned out to be anxiety. A drunk sleeping it off in Bay 7. Emily went straight to her office and started making calls. First to Agent Marsh. "I got another threat last night." Marsh swore. "What kind?" Emily told her. Every detail, every word. Marsh went silent for a long moment. That's a different voice pattern than the others. More professional, controlled. This isn't some street dealer trying to scare you. This is someone with training. "Can you trace it?" "We're trying, but whoever called knew what they were doing. Burner phone, signal, bounced through multiple towers, VPN masking. By the time we triangulate, they'll be long gone." "So what do? We wait, and we watch." People like this make mistakes when they get overconfident. They think they're untouchable. That's when they slip. And if they don't, then we make them. Marsh hung up. Emily sat there staring at her computer screen. Then she pulled up the hospital's security footage from last night. scrolled through the parking garage cameras frame by frame, watched herself walk to her car at 11:43 p.m., watched Marcus arrive 8 minutes later, watched them sit there talking, and then she saw it. A figure, standing behind a pillar near the southeast corner, just at the edge of camera 3's field of view, completely still, watching. Emily zoomed in. The resolution was terrible. The hospital's security system was 15 years old, and nobody had bothered upgrading it until now, but she could make out a shape. Male, average height, dark jacket, baseball cap pulled low, face obscured by shadow. She took a screenshot, sent it to Marsh and Marcus. 2 minutes later, Marcus called. "Where did you get this?" "Hospital security footage. Last night, 11:52 p.m. "Can you get a better angle?" "I'm trying." She pulled up every camera in the parking garage. 6 total. Started piecing together a timeline. The figure appeared at 11:43 p.m., the exact moment Emily had walked out of the hospital. Stayed in position until 12:08 a.m., never moved, just watched, then disappeared between camera transitions. But on camera 6 there was a moment, just 3 frames, where the figure turned slightly, adjusting position, reaching for something. Emily enhanced the image as much as the ancient system would allow. It was grainy, pixelated, but there was something visible, a profile, a jawline, and on the collar of his jacket, just barely visible, was a patch. She couldn't make out the design, but the shape was distinctive, circular, professional. She sent it to Marcus. "Corporate security patch," he texted back 30 seconds later. "Give me an hour." Emily went back to work. The ER was starting to wake up. A woman came in with abdominal pain. Turned out to be appendicitis. Emily prepped her for surgery. A kid with asthma who'd run out of his inhaler. A panic attack. A sprained ankle. The rhythm of the morning settling in. At 9:47 a.m., Marcus called. "The patch is from Sentinel Group, private military contractor. They do corporate security, executive protection, asset recovery, and wet work when the price is right." Emily's blood went cold. "Someone hired a PMC to watch me?" "To watch you, to scare you, and probably to do a lot worse if you don't back down." "Who hired them?" "That's what we're going to find out." By noon, Marcus had assembled a team, not FBI, not DEA, not anyone official. These were people he'd worked with in the military, people who operated in spaces where warrants didn't matter and rules were more like suggestions than requirements. They met in a conference room on the 4th floor that Emily had never been to before. 6 people total. All of them looked like they could kill someone with a plastic spoon and not break a sweat. Ex-special forces, intelligence operatives, people with skills Emily didn't want to think too hard about. Marcus laid out what they knew. The threats. The contaminated drugs. Keller's arrest. Collier's involvement. The phone call. The security footage. The Sentinel Group connection. One of the team members, a woman named Rita, former CIA, sharp eyes and sharper instincts, pulled up a laptop and started typing. Sentinel Group is a shell, registered in Delaware, owned by a holding company in the Cayman Islands, which is owned by another company in Singapore, which traces back to a trust in Luxembourg. "Can you crack it?" Marcus asked. Rita's fingers moved across the keyboard like she was playing a piano. "Already working on it. Give me 15 minutes. Emily watched her work, watched lines of code scroll across the screen, watched databases open and close, watched digital doors get kicked in one by one. 12 minutes later, Rita turned the laptop around. "The trust is controlled by 3 people. 2 are dead. Car accidents within 6 months of each other. Very convenient, very suspicious. The 3rd is alive. And you're going to love this." She clicked. A photo appeared on the screen. Emily's stomach dropped. It was Dr. Raymond Collier, chief of medicine at Northgate Regional. The man who'd warned her to be careful, who'd told her she was making enemies, who'd questioned her judgment in front of staff, who'd been at the hospital for 15 years and somehow always survived budget cuts and administration changes and scandals that would have ended anyone else's career. "He's been on the cartel's payroll for 6 years, Rita said, pulling up financial records. Helped them set up distribution networks through hospital supply chains, provided medical cover for their operations, falsified death certificates. And when things got hot, when people started asking questions, he eliminated loose ends. Marcus looked at Emily. You know him? Yeah, he came to my office after I testified against Keller, tried to get me to back down, said I was making too much noise. He was protecting his investment. Emily stood. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear, from rage. Where is he now? In his office, 3rd floor, East Wing. Emily walked toward the door. Marcus stood. What are you doing? Ending this. Emily, wait! She didn't wait. Took the stairs 2 at a time. Her heart was pounding, but her mind was clear. She'd been threatened, shot at, fired, dragged through the mud. And every single time she'd found out later that someone at the hospital had been pulling strings. Someone who'd been there all along, watching, manipulating, profiting. She walked straight to Collier's office. Didn't knock. Just opened the door. Collier was on the phone. Looked up, saw her face. Went pale. I'll call you back. He hung up slowly. Set the phone down. Miss Carter, what can I do for you? Emily closed the door behind her. You can tell me why you hired Sentinel Group to threaten me. Collier's expression didn't change. Practiced, professional. I don't know what you're talking about. Sentinel Group, shell companies, cartel money laundering. Want me to keep going? You need to leave my office, now. Or what? You'll have me killed like you did Miguel Santos? Something flickered in Collier's eyes. Just for a second. But it was enough. Emily saw it. The calculation. The fear underneath the mask. I had nothing to do with that. You signed off on the financial transfers that paid for it. We have the bank records, your signature, your authorization codes. Collier stood, moved toward the door. Emily stepped in front of it. You're not leaving. You can't keep me here. This is assault. Try me. The door opened behind her. Marcus stepped in with 2 FBI agents. Agent Marsh right behind them. All 3 of them armed. All 3 of them looking at Collier like he was already in handcuffs. Dr. Raymond Collier, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, racketeering, and about 15 other charges I'm going to enjoy reading to you. Collier's face went white. All the color drained out like someone had pulled a plug. This is a mistake. I want my lawyer. You'll get one. Marsh held up a warrant. We've been building a case against you for 3 months, ever since we flipped one of Keller's associates and he gave you up. You just made it easier by trying to eliminate a federal witness. They cuffed him, read him his rights. Collier started yelling about his reputation, his career, his rights. Emily watched in silence. They walked him out through the hospital, down the main corridor, past the nurses' station where staff stopped and stared, past patients in wheelchairs, past the lobby where someone had tipped off a news crew and cameras were already rolling. Emily watched him go. Watched him get loaded into an FBI vehicle. Watched the car pull away. She felt nothing. No satisfaction, no triumph, just bone-deep exhaustion and the hollow realization that the fight was never really over. There was always someone else, always another layer. The fallout was immediate and brutal. News crews swarmed the hospital like locusts. Collier's arrest made national headlines. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, everyone running the same story with different spin. The hospital board went into emergency session. Staff were being interviewed by federal agents. The entire administration was under investigation. And Emily got called in to explain everything. She sat across from Victoria and 4 board members she'd never met before. Lawyers flanked them on both sides. Emily told them the truth. All of it. No hedging, no spin, just facts. When she finished, the room was silent for a long moment. The board president, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen everything twice, leaned forward. Ms. Carter, you've been employed here for 4 months. In that time, you've been fired, rehired, threatened multiple times, sued, and turned this hospital completely upside down. You've also saved countless lives, exposed massive corruption, and helped federal agents dismantle a criminal organization that's been operating for years. So I have one question. Emily met her eyes. What's that? Are you planning to keep doing this? If by this you mean holding people accountable and saving lives, then yes. The president smiled, small, genuine. Good, because we're promoting you. Emily blinked. To what? Chief Medical Officer, full executive authority over all clinical operations. You'll report directly to the board, and you'll have whatever resources you need to build this hospital into what it should have been all along. Victoria slid a contract across the table. Emily picked it up. Read it carefully. The salary made her dizzy, more money than she'd ever imagined making. The authority was absolute. No administrators second-guessing her, no bureaucrats cutting corners, just her judgment and the mission. The responsibility was crushing, terrifying, exactly what she'd been training for her entire life without knowing it. She signed it. Over the next 3 months, Emily rebuilt Northgate from the ground up. She hired 50 new nurses, competitive pay, benefits, respect. Word spread fast and applications flooded in. She brought in physicians who cared more about patients than profit margins, opened 2 new wings, upgraded equipment that should have been replaced a decade ago, streamlined protocols, cut waste, made decisions that would have gotten her fired 6 months earlier. The ER wait time dropped from 4 hours to 90 minutes. Patient satisfaction scores went up 40%. Staff retention hit levels the hospital hadn't seen in 15 years. The overdose crisis couldn't end overnight, but it slowed. The DEA dismantled 3 more trafficking cells using information from Collier's network. The contaminated supply dried up. Harm reduction programs expanded. People still died. Emily still lost patients, but fewer of them. And the ones who survived had a fighting chance. Emily worked 80-hour weeks, slept 4 hours a night, lived on coffee and the kind of adrenaline that comes from knowing you're building something that matters. But she didn't burn out. Because every shift she saw the difference, saw patients walking out who wouldn't have made it 6 months ago, saw staff who were proud to come to work, saw families who weren't bankrupted by medical bills, saw a system that finally worked the way it was supposed to. And then one day, 3 months and 2 weeks after Collier's arrest, she got a call from Agent Marsh. "We got him." Emily was in the middle of reviewing surgical schedules. "Got who?" The voice on the phone. The one who threatened you that night in the parking garage. Emily's pulse kicked. Who was it? Former Delta Force operator, hired by Collier through Sentinel Group to eliminate you if you didn't back down. He's been in federal custody for 2 weeks. We just got him to flip on the entire operation. What did he say? That Collier panicked after Keller's arrest, started reaching out to anyone who could make problems disappear. The cartel wanted to back off, cut their losses, but Collier convinced them you were the weak link, that if they scared you enough, the whole investigation would collapse. He was wrong. Very wrong. And now he's looking at life without parole. The operator's looking at 20 years minimum. And the network they were part of, 17 people arrested, 3 different states, completely dismantled. Emily closed her eyes. Let herself feel it for just a moment. It's really over. It's really over. She hung up, sat there in her office, stared at the wall where Mateo's drawing was still pinned, the stick figure with the cape, the thank you note from a kid who was alive because she'd refused to quit. Then she went back to work. 6 months after Collier's arrest, the hospital held a gala, black tie fundraiser for a new trauma center, state-of-the-art equipment, expanded capacity, everything the ER needed and more. Emily didn't want to go, hated these events, the small talk, the politics, the wealthy donors who wanted to feel good about themselves without actually understanding what the money would do. But Victoria insisted, said it was important, said people needed to see the face of the hospital's transformation, said Emily owed it to the staff who'd fought alongside her. So Emily went. Wore a dress she'd borrowed from Jenna because she still didn't own one, felt awkward and out of place in heels. But she showed up. The ballroom was packed. Donors in expensive suits, politicians angling for photo ops, medical professionals from across the state, press with cameras. Everyone who mattered in Denver healthcare crammed into one overpriced venue. Victoria gave a speech, talked about resilience, about transformation, about what happens when good people refuse to accept that things have to be broken. She talked about the overdose crisis, about Keller, about Collier, about the fight that had nearly destroyed the hospital but ultimately saved it. Then she called Emily to the stage. Emily walked up slowly, stood at the podium, looked out at the sea of faces. Some she knew, most she didn't, all of them waiting for her to say something profound, something inspirational, something they could quote in press releases. She didn't have that in her, never had. "I'm not good at these things," she started. so I'll keep it short. A year ago, I was fired from this hospital for doing my job, for saving a kid's life when the system said he wasn't worth the cost, for ignoring a policy that valued money over medicine. Today, that kid's alive, thriving, playing soccer, annoying his parents, living a life he almost didn't get to have. She paused, looked out at the crowd. This hospital doesn't turn anyone away anymore. Not because of insurance, not because of money, not for any reason except genuine medical necessity. That didn't happen because of me. It happened because people fought. Staff who worked impossible hours, physicians who stayed when they could have left, nurses who refused to let patients die just because some administrator decided they weren't profitable, families who demanded better and wouldn't take no for an answer, and leadership that finally decided to do the right thing even when it was hard. Her voice was steady, clear, no notes, no script, just the truth. This building isn't just bricks and equipment. It's a promise that when you're at your worst, when everything's falling apart and you don't know if you'll survive, there are people here who won't give up on you, who'll fight for you even when you can't fight for yourself. That's what we built. That's what we'll protect. And that's what matters more than any dollar amount you can put in a budget. The room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Then the entire ballroom was standing, applauding. Some people were crying. Emily stepped back from the podium, left the stage, walked straight out of the ballroom to the balcony overlooking the city. Marcus found her there 5 minutes later. He was holding 2 glasses of whiskey, handed her one. Hell of a speech. I hate speeches. Could have fooled me. They stood there in silence, watching the city lights, listening to traffic, breathing air that didn't smell like disinfectant and fear. You ever think about what's next? Marcus asked. What do you mean? I mean, you've got the hospital running like a machine. You've got the best staff in the state, resources, autonomy, respect. What happens when you get bored? Emily took a sip of whiskey. It burned going down. I don't know. Find another fight, I guess. That's what I figured. Marcus pulled an envelope from his jacket, handed it to her. When you're ready. Emily opened it. Inside was a business card. Simple, black, expensive cardstock. Just a phone number and 3 words. Fixing broken systems. What is this? A job offer. There are hospitals all over the country like Northgate used to be. Corrupt. Broken. Killing people through incompetence and greed and bureaucratic inertia. I'm putting together a team to fix them. Advisory role, consulting, direct intervention when necessary. And I want you to lead it. Emily stared at the card. You're serious? Completely. We've got funding, legal support, political backing from people who are tired of watching healthcare collapse. What we need is someone who knows how to fight, someone who's done it before and won. I didn't win. I just didn't lose. Same thing. Marcus finished his whiskey. Think about it. No pressure. But when you're ready for the next fight, and you will be, call that number. He left. Emily stood there holding the card, thinking about everything she'd been through, everything she'd lost, everything she'd built, the people she'd saved and the ones she couldn't, the system she'd broken and the one she'd created to replace it. Then she put the card in her pocket and went back inside. 3 months later, Emily was in her office at 7 a.m., reviewing staffing reports when there was a knock on her door. She looked up. It was Mr. Torres, the father, the one whose son she'd saved, the one who'd started everything. He was holding a small box wrapped in newspaper comics. Mr. Torres, what are you doing here? I wanted to give you this. He set the box on her desk. Mateo's 9th birthday was last week. He wanted you to have this. Emily opened the box carefully. Inside was a drawing, crayon on construction paper, a stick figure in scrubs with a cape flowing behind her. Next to it, smaller stick figures holding hands. A family. At the top, in a child's careful handwriting, thank you for saving my life. I want to help people like you. Love, Mateo. Emily's throat tightened. She tried to speak but couldn't get words out. He talks about you all the time, Mr. Torres said quietly. Says he wants to be a doctor like you when he grows up. Says he's going to save people who nobody else will save. I'm not a doctor. You are to him, to all of us. He paused. His eyes were wet. I don't know if I ever really said it properly. Thank you. For not giving up when everyone told you to. For fighting when no one else would. for remembering that my son is a person, not a line item in a budget. You gave me my life back. I'll never forget that. Never." He left before Emily could respond. Emily sat there staring at the drawing, at the cape, at the stick figures holding hands, at the life that almost wasn't, at the future that existed because she'd made a choice. She pinned it to her wall, right next to her nursing license, and the photo of her sister from 10 years ago, and the army commendation she'd never bothered to frame. Then she pulled out the business card Marcus had given her 3 months ago, looked at it for a long time, turned it over in her hands, and made a decision. 2 weeks later, Emily was on a plane to Chicago. First stop on Marcus's list, a hospital drowning in debt and corruption. Patients dying in hallways, staff quitting in droves, administration more concerned with protecting their bonuses than providing care. She landed at O'Hare at 6:47 p.m. on a Thursday. A car was waiting at arrivals. Black SUV, professional driver who didn't make small talk. Took her straight to the hospital. Rush University Medical Center. Massive, institutional. Exactly the kind of place that ground good people into dust. She walked in through the ER entrance, stood there for a moment, just watching. The chaos was familiar. Overwhelmed staff, desperate families, a system breaking in real time, patients waiting hours for beds, nurses running on fumes, physicians buried in paperwork instead of treating people. She walked up to the nurses' station. "Who's in charge here?" A nurse looked up, exhausted, skeptical, dark circles under her eyes, scrubs that had seen too many shifts. "Depends on what you need." Emily pulled out her credentials. New ones. Official. "I'm Emily Carter. I'm here to fix things." The nurse laughed. Bitter. Hollow. "Good luck with that. We've had 5 consultants in 2 years. Nothing ever changes." "I'm not a consultant. I'm someone who's done this before." The nurse studied her for a moment. Saw something in Emily's face that made her pause. "You serious?" "Completely." The nurse stood, tired but not defeated. "Not yet." "Then let's get to work." "What?" 18 months later. Emily stood in the Northgate Regional ER on a random Tuesday afternoon in late spring. She'd flown back to Denver for a quarterly site visit. Marcus's initiative, which now had an official name, proper funding, and legal structure, had expanded to 12 hospitals across 6 states, all of them transformed, all of them thriving, all of them saving lives that would have been lost 6 months earlier. But Northgate was still home, still the place where everything had changed. She walked through the department slowly, saw nurses she'd hired personally, physicians she'd recruited from other hospitals, equipment she'd fought for, protocols she'd written, a system that worked because people cared more about results than rules. The ER was busy, but controlled. Organized chaos instead of just chaos. Everyone moving with purpose. No one standing around waiting for someone else to make a decision. Jenna found her near Bay 4. "Didn't know you were coming. Last-minute decision? Wanted to check in. How's everything?" "Smooth. We're actually ahead on all our metrics this quarter. Wait times are down. Patient satisfaction is up. We got full marks on the last accreditation review." Emily smiled. "Good. You staying long?" "Just overnight. I've got a flight to Seattle tomorrow morning, another hospital that needs help." Jenna shook her head. "You're going to change the whole country at this rate." "One hospital at a time." They stood there for a moment. Then Jenna hugged her, tight, genuine. "Thank you for everything, for showing us it was possible." Emily hugged her back. "You did the work. I just cleared the path. You did more than that. You changed how we think about this job, about what we're capable of." Emily pulled back. "Keep fighting. Don't let anyone tell you it has to be broken." "I won't." Emily left the next morning early, but before she headed to the airport, she stopped at a coffee shop across the street from the hospital, sat by the window, ordered something that cost too much and tasted like burnt sugar, watched the ER entrance, watched ambulances arrive, watched staff moving with purpose, watched a system that worked. Her phone buzzed, text from Marcus. "Boston needs you." Same story, different city. "Administration's been embezzling for 3 years. Staff's ready to walk. You in?" Emily looked at the hospital one more time, thought about the kid she'd saved, about Mateo's drawing, about all the lives that existed because she'd refused to accept that things had to be broken, about the fight she'd won and the ones still waiting. She typed back, "I'm in." Then she finished her overpriced coffee, grabbed her bag, walked out into the morning sunlight, and headed toward whatever fight was waiting. Because here's what Emily Carter had learned. The system doesn't change because people ask nicely. It changes because someone refuses to accept that things have to stay broken. Because someone stands up when everyone else sits down. Because someone decides that saving lives matters more than following rules written by people who've never watched someone die. She'd been fired for doing her job, threatened for telling the truth, attacked for refusing to back down, called reckless, emotional, unqualified. And she'd won. Not because she was perfect, she wasn't. She made mistakes, lost her temper, pushed too hard sometimes, alienated people who might have been allies, didn't sleep enough, didn't eat right, forgot to return calls. Burned bridges she probably should have preserved, but she showed up every single day, and she fought for the patients who had no voice, for the staff who'd been beaten down by bureaucracy, for the idea that healthcare should be about healing, not profit margins, for the belief that one person could make a difference if they were willing to pay the price. And in the end, that was enough. Because the world doesn't change through grand gestures or perfect plans. It changes through small acts of defiance, through nurses who refuse to let patients die, through doctors who choose compassion over convenience, through administrators who remember that numbers represent people, through anyone who sees injustice and decides they won't look away. Emily Carter had been one person, one nurse, fired, dismissed, told she didn't matter, told she was making things worse, told to quit while she still could. And she'd changed everything. Not by being special, by being stubborn. Not by having power, by refusing to surrender it to people who'd abuse it. Not by being fearless, by being terrified and doing it anyway. Not by being perfect, by being relentlessly, inconveniently, dangerously committed to doing what was right. The hospital she'd saved was still standing, stronger than before. The people she'd fought for were still alive, still breathing, still getting chances they almost didn't have. And somewhere in America, in cities she'd never been to, hospitals were being rebuilt by people she'd never meet, following a blueprint she'd helped create. That was legacy. That was victory. That was worth everything she'd lost along the way. Emily boarded the plane to Seattle, took her seat by the window, pulled out Mateo's drawing from her bag. She carried it with her everywhere now, a reminder of why the fight mattered. Looked at it one more time. The stick figure with the cape, the family holding hands, the future that existed because someone had refused to quit. She smiled, folded the drawing carefully, put it back in her bag. Then she closed her eyes and slept. For the first time in 2 years, she slept without nightmares, without jolting awake thinking about patients she'd lost, without replaying conversations with administrators who'd tried to break her. She slept like someone who'd finished one fight and was ready for the next, because she'd learned something else too, something that kept her moving forward when everything else told her to stop. The fight never ends. The system will always try to break good people. Bureaucracy will always favor profit over patients. There will always be another Keller, another Collier, another organization willing to let people die for money. But there will also always be people willing to fight back, people who refuse to accept that cruelty is necessary, people who believe that healthcare is a right, not a privilege, people who understand that saving one life matters just as much as saving 1,000. And that was worth everything. Every threat, every sleepless night, every relationship sacrificed, every moment of fear and doubt and exhaustion. Because at the end of the day, Emily Carter had looked in the mirror and known one thing with absolute certainty. She'd done everything she could. She'd fought when it mattered. She'd saved lives that would have been lost. She'd changed a system that everyone said couldn't be changed. And she wasn't done yet, not even close. The plane took off. Emily opened her eyes, looked out at the clouds, at the world spreading out below. Somewhere down there, people were dying because systems had failed them, because administrators cared more about budgets than lives, because good people had given up fighting, but not for long. Emily Carter was coming, and she didn't lose.